All right, you guys. So thanks for coming out to Stiff Nights, a special edition of Stiff TV here at Lucid Lounge. I don't know if you guys all know this, but during the festival we show films here, and every night during the festival from 10 to midnight, free short films. So you guys should come out. And Daicool Vodka, of course, our sponsor, and made by David here at Lucid Lounge. I don't think he makes it here, but anyways. So we have some special guests. What we're talking about is television and TV and the possibility of some TV shows being shot in Seattle. It's something ever since I first started working in film, there's all these rumors of television and these shows coming. So we're talking with Amy Lillard, Washington Filmworks. She's working hard to bring these shows here. And Robin and Marco Scaringi. Scaringi. I should know it by now. We've known each other for, about 10 years.
By the way, take another sip of that, it'll help.
Yeah.
Pronunciation.
Scaringi. All right, you guys. These guys work in film. We met a really long time ago when you guys were kind of just getting out of film school. I think at Stiff we showed your film school films and got to know you guys about that time.
I don't think you showed any film school.
Any film school films?
I
in the dark.
guess we were in. Well, I was in school, but I didn't. It wasn't made as part of film school.
So we're going to talk about how did you guys go from film school and making little interesting films that showed at small festivals to now working on big TV shows. So we're going to start with Amy.
Oh.
And so television is it's changed a lot since I was younger, where first it used to be there was 3 channels and not that many TV shows, and now there's just tons of television shows and now web shows, which creates a ton of opportunity for the industry. So what about why is it so important to our industry that we bring those shows to Seattle?
Sure. I think we no longer talk about television shows, right? We talk about episodic series, right? Because what you're hitting on, which is exactly what you guys are doing at the Transmedia Festival, is that there are no rules anymore for how things get distributed, which I think as content creators and as people who work in this industry is completely and totally inspiring. I'm just going to take 1 minute and say that I think that where Stiff is going with the transmedia and the new vision for what you guys are doing is super spot on. It's where Washington Filmworks is pushing in general with the Innovation Lab. And I think episodic is such a great window into that. But, when you look at episodic series in general, you're looking at consistent work. I think as people who work in the film industry, as much as we appreciate having a film come in, we appreciate more knowing that we can work for 5 to 6 months at a time on something that is getting distributed, right? So you're talking 2 key points in that moment already, right? So it is consistent work that, if you're looking at things that roll over from season 1 to season 2, you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 9 months of consistent work in a year, which is huge for us. And 2, it's something that's distributed widely, that has a notoriety and a fame and a fan base, which makes the work that we do valuable in a way that, is quantifiable, I would say. And I think if you look at, the long term of an episodic in an area, you're really talking about establishing a destination of Seattle, for example, as a production center. And when you have a production center, you have an influx of, more crew and more opportunities, but also people who want to invest in infrastructure. I mean, for as long as I have been doing this job at Washington Filmworks, which has been almost since the dawn of time in 2007, I actually started in 2006. We've been talking about investment in a soundstage, right? If you have a long-term episodic series, you have people who want to invest in that infrastructure that truly makes it a production center.
Yeah, so Twin Peaks, which is one of the
one
of the topics we might be talking about, but that original show, when it was shot here, they shot the pilot here, But when they actually were going to shoot the series, they shot most of it in LA because they had that infrastructure that we didn't have here.
What pilot?
The original Twin Peaks series.
I mean, it's a convenient time to take.
And so what are, like, kind of addressing some of the rumors, we definitely know that Z Nation is coming back, which kind of used up a lot.
We know
Oh,
that
I thought we,
We know it's
know
picked
there's
up for
season
a
two.
second season.
but we don't know it's going to be shot in Washington?
I don't know.
Well,
Wow,
They
okay.
have not made that announcement yet.
And you guys worked on that show, and you guys haven't been called back yet? You don't
we
know?
haven't been called back.
Any, have you heard anything?
We are in discussion with them about season 2,
Mhm.
and we are expecting an application soon. But there are, I'm sure we'll dive into this conversation in more detail later. But I'm holding, or I know of, and am talking to in a meaningful way, 6 projects that would shoot in Washington State tomorrow if we had enough incentive funds. I
Does
mean,
that include the Twin Peaks?
I don't know what you're talking about.
And what about the Man in the High Castle shot a pilot here? It's got it's getting amazing reviews of all the kind of Amazon pilots. It seems to be the only show that's getting consistent good reviews. So,
Right.
but have they talked to you about shooting a series here?
Sure. So, I mean, I have to give it up for Seattle, right? Because Seattle did such a stellar job. It's no secret to this community that that particular show was intended to go to Vancouver, BC, for various reasons, and they were all corporate related, is my understanding. They didn't go there, and they came to Seattle at the last minute looking for 2 perfect locations, which were the ID, the International District, as well as the Paramount Hotel. And they came here with very little time. You guys can speak to that in a significant way. And Seattle knocked it out of the park, I mean, you're talking about producers like, Gene, who was the line producer on the project, did seven seasons of Lost, right? You're talking about David Zucker, who did, The Good Wife, and I think X-Files. And, the caliber of producers and the people who are working on the show do episodic series. When Man on the High Castle came, they came here for locations. And because when they came on 4th of July, our office is between the Seattle Film Office and FilmWorks, stepped up to the plate and we found them what they needed, and that's why they came, right? When you talk about going to series, that's a whole different ballgame. It becomes a business decision, right? So incentives become a much more important piece of the discussion. So,
Can you explain just a little bit deeper what an incentive is and what is the Washington State incentive plan?
yes. So production incentives are basically what they call soft money in the industry. And it is basically a return on the investment that you make in a state's economy, whether that is the state's, the money that you spend with businesses or the money that you spend on working with our local cast and crew. Washington FilmWorks runs the incentive program in Washington State. We are one of 39 states in the country that have these incentive programs in place. And not to mention little places like Vancouver, BC. We all know that. Puerto Rico and Alaska. I mean, there's countless numbers of people who are vying for this business because it's great business, right? But Washington FilmWorks runs that incentive program domestically in the United States. We are the 5th smallest fund in the country. There are 39 states with these programs. We have the 5th smallest fund in the country. So
And so we've been at about 3 million, 3.5 million?
$3.5 million per year.
And
Yeah.
that last year, if you guys don't know this, so Z Nation took up the majority of the fund. We had a feature film that also took up a little bit of the money, but we could have brought a lot more.
Not true.
Uh-huh.
Not true. So, FilmWorks does not make decisions based on East versus West. We make decisions based upon economic impact in the state and the number of jobs that are created for the people in state, right? That's how we make decisions. The money last year that was allocated was split 49% on the west side of the state, as we call it, and 51% on the east side of the state. So I think that there is a misconception that the majority of the funds last year went to the series. The fact of the matter is that series had a budget that is incredible that they made work for the east side of the state.
So what kind of the plan now is we're renewing the incentive and we'd like to renew it at a higher level to attract more projects?
I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Wait.
So it's something that has to be renewed on a regular basis every couple of years, like you, but really we as a community
Yes.
go back to the legislature,
Thank
right?
you.
And
It's
we
you as a community.
yeah.
Right?
And so what are the efforts that you're working on right now towards that?
So we actually are not. We as a community are making a choice to, in this moment, potentially, right? We're still in that negotiation phase. Move forward with a bill to increase the funding for the program. We are not sunsetting until 2017, but what we as a community have decided, and there are lots of people involved in this, this discussion. It's not just FilmWorks. It is, IATSE, who covers many of the crew members. It is SAG-AFTRA. It is the Teamsters. It is Washington Film Pack. There are a number of people who represent the people in this room and the people who work in the industry contributing to this conversation. So it's not just FilmWorks. I want to be super clear about that because I feel great about where we're at because we've gotten the input from people. But the reason why we're deciding potentially to move forward is because we're running out of money. I have, as I said previously, 6 projects today that want to film. Those 6 projects would take $11 million this year. We have 3.5.
Yeah, and it's more than these big organizations. I have a lot of individual friends that do efforts and write emails and go and attend events. So what can we do as individuals?
So I've been doing this job a very long time. I think pretty much everyone in the room knows I've been doing this job for a very long time. This is everything in Olympia is chaotic right now. There is fear over McCleary, right? So that's the state, the state is being held in contempt of court for not funding K through 12 education. So they've got to find money for that. And then the state employees haven't seen an increase in, their salaries in 6 years. And that's not right either. There was a state class initiative that passed, right? There's a lot of fear, respectfully, in Olympia right now about, having to meet all of these additional revenue needs and not having enough money to do it, right? Just factually, there's, as I recall the last time I looked, almost $1 billion in budget shortfall. So the state is like, we have this budget, and we are almost $1 billion short of being able to make it, right? So what is the message, right? So I've been in Olympia 4 or 5 times now. It is not about me. It is about you. And we are prepping legislation, and we are working towards legislation. But there's no way on earth that this is going to work without every single person sitting in this room making a decision to be present for their own careers. And I don't say that lightly. There's many people in this room that know me personally, that have known me for a long time. It is a different environment in Olympia. And when we came out in 2012, when we weren't renewed in 2011, there was a force. There was a force to be reckoned with. And that ain't nothing like what we need to do now, right? And I will tell you, tonight, coming here and being here when I've been talking on the phone and in Olympia and doing all these things, I get inspired, right? This is what gets me going, right? But everyone needs to show up in a super meaningful way. It is not about our numbers and the success of the program, which we can prove. It's about you and you and you and everyone showing up and telling their story.
And we're this very independent film festival, and I think a lot of our kind of followers, like, they never see themselves working on these kind of projects. But you do have a program for very independent films, the Innovations Lab.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I love this program. So 2 years ago, I think we're on our third or fourth cycle. Should I give the history or just the program?
Just a kind of a quick overview.
Yeah, so we have something called the Innovation Lab, which is about, I talked to people back there about it. It's about supporting Washington filmmakers and filmmakers using emerging technologies. And it's we're allowed to take $350,000 a year. We've already allocated $100,000 of that over the last calendar year to support the work that you do. And it's about helping launch the careers of people, but even equally important, it is so aligned with what you guys are doing at the festival, which is it's a disservice as a filmmaker to think of yourself only as a film, right? It is about thinking of that film and that story as intellectual property, and where does that live?
Yeah, we talk about storytelling as not every story is really a 90-minute feature film story, but it's find the medium, like, for your story.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why the
And
transmedia, and
Totally.
it's just whatever kind of best suits what you're trying to say, whether it's episodic or a feature film or a short film or an interactive app for your iPad or whatever. So
Yes.
and all of these can be funded through the Innovation Lab?
Yes, content. It's the content created for those mediums
Yeah.
that is funded. And I have to say, and I haven't said this publicly, which is kind of funny because I'm saying it here, but the success of the last cycle, we had allocated $100,000 for this year. And the board just allocated, the last cycle we used most of it, they just allocated another $100,000. So we have another $100,000 to work with. The last, yeah, I know. It's
And so how do you apply? It's probably all. Oh, Scott, do you just have a real quick question just
Do you
about
have
it?
200 or two quick
$100,000 for this cycle right now.
for the spring
That is opening the
on the
last week of
23rd.
February.
Right, okay, 100 left?
And you can apply between the 23rd of, thank you, February and March 2nd. That's the application window.
Cool, and all the details are probably on the website, but I'm sure you see a lot of these applications and you see a lot of people that you would like to give money to, but they're maybe
I
just...
don't give any money away, just
they're-
to be like, don't bother
Yeah,
me.
but they're just like a little bit just lacking or short of, like, what piece of advice that would have maybe put some of those people over the hump?
Just between us.
Yeah.
So it's a juried award, and what I see most often, there are two things, right? I want to say there are two things. I think really having a command of what we call the concept map. If you look at our guidelines and criteria, there's a concept map, and the ones that are in there, if I'm being honest, are super vanilla. The people who succeed come in with a concept map that is interesting and that they can pitch and explain. Pay attention to that, because it is truly the roadmap to the business plan, as you know, doing what you're doing with the transmedia thing. But then the second thing is really being able to articulate that in a pitch session. So the finalists get invited to go speak to the jury and pitch the jury. The jury ultimately recommends the funding to the board, who votes. But the people who win in the room are people who can put words to that concept map and can inspire with that. So that's really what I've seen.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing that makes, like, a successful Kickstarter or somebody that can find investors. It's a lot of it is like you've got to know who your audience is and how you're going to get your content out to your audience. You know.
But I think it's what you guys are also daring filmmakers to do and what you're doing with the festival, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're but like, I feel like you're challenging people to think outside of their box a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what the Innovation Lab is about. And so in some ways, we're following the lead that you guys are taking.
Yeah, we created 18 different submission categories this year. If you guys have had a chance to check out the website, and it's there. And submissions are technically closed, but if you're one of our very close friends, we might be able to kind of hook you up not for much longer because we have to start making some decisions.
Yeah, like
So-
2 days. 2 days. You got 2 days.
2 days and you
Yeah.
go to history.
All right, guys. So let's talk with Robin and Marco a little bit. I met you guys when you were basically, fresh out of film school. You probably were doing a lot of volunteer type work or very kind of low pay kind of work. And in a pretty short time, in just the last few years, you guys are working on some really big shows. Can you talk about some of the TV shows you worked on? Why don't you, Robin, what was your first kind of big show you worked on?
Well, big is relative.
Mhm.
I mean, you work on a big show and then the next one's way bigger, and you're like, was that one a big show?
Yeah, no, we worked together on a very small TV show last year, but you've gone on to do, what was your big show after that? Z Nation?
Yes,
Mhm.
we worked on Z Nation and on Fan in the High Castle.
Yeah, and what was your positions?
My official position on both shows was digital loader,
Mhm.
which is the equivalent of like a film loader today. Only everything's digital now, so it's the person who organizes the media.
Cool. And what about you, Marco? You also worked on both of those shows?
Yeah, so we're married if you guys didn't know that. I got hired on Z Nation as the assistant production office coordinator, who works with the coordinator kind of not on set, working in the production office, kind of dealing with a lot of paperwork, organizing communications with the crew. So I got hired on as the assistant coordinator for Z Nation over in Spokane, and moved out there about a month before they started filming. I knew that they needed a digital loader, so I put in Robin's name, and luckily she got hired, so we got to spend the summer together, living together in Spokane.
Cool. So you guys both went to film school. One of the things about working in film is whether you go to film school or you don't go is like you really have to find your own path. Everyone has a different path. There's so many little specialties. You kind of think of, I'm going to film school to be a director or maybe a cinematographer. Can you guys talk about your experience going to film school? Like, was it worth going or not? And then why did you take the path that you guys took?
Well, I think film school is definitely worth it for me, but honestly, I think it was mostly because it sort of, well, first off, I had no idea what I was doing, so that helped. But then second, it helped establish like a network of people that I could rely on, both like in my same grade and in other grades. So that was a big thing. I think there's a couple people that went to my film school here. Just see, are part of my network now. Yeah,
Right, which one?
Seattle Central, which unfortunately is closed down.
Good old San Lucia.
Yes. So that spoke to my experience. What about you?
Yeah, and so when Robin was going to film school, she had me act in a lot of her projects, and I also ended up helping behind the scenes. So that's kind of how I got my start, was just kind of working with her friends, and I got some pretty good experience that way, just volunteering on those projects. So Robin was making a career out of it. I was still working in the mortgage industry.
Yeah, we both worked in the mortgage industry, which was
Yeah.
a good industry to leave.
And so I eventually, I was making a hobby out of it, which was a lot of fun, and just my work was kind of on a decline, and I decided once I got laid off from my last job, I had the opportunity through the worker retraining program to also do film school. So I went to Shoreline Community College, and they've got a really good film program there. And I was actually kind of on the fence on whether or not I would do it, because I had already made a lot of friends, and I knew I could volunteer on a lot of projects and kind of work my way up that way. But because I had film school pretty much paid for by the worker retraining, I opted to do that. I knew that the teachers were really good. So when I was in film school, I kind of used that as like a jumping off point to offer my skills and say, hey, I'm a film student. I want to learn how to do films. Can I volunteer on your project? and I probably worked, like, in addition to all the stuff I was doing for school, I probably did at least a dozen different film projects outside of school. I did 2 feature films, Safety Not Guaranteed and Fat Kid Rules the World. I did official internships on those, and met a lot of people that.
You've heard of those, right?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So the people I met on that, they really helped me, like, find work once I got out of school.
Yeah, so before you were even out of school, you were already working on some pretty decent feature films. Huh?
Yeah.
That's great. And so, what about episodic is it that you like? Like, do you see yourself like working on more episodic type projects or features? And like, what's the difference for you?
Well, I know I like episodic for the reasons that you were going into, that it's just consistent work for at least the rest of the season. But in addition to that, for Z Nation, it made it able for me to join the union. I did not get that opportunity anywhere else. And joining the union means good pay, and it means health benefits, which are huge, huge perks. So episodic, like big time episodic like that, is definitely a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, episodic, it's great because well, I mean, most feature films, they'll come to town and they'll shoot over the course of a month or 2, maybe. Whereas Z Nation was 4 months or 5 months with prep, you know. And, you know, Man in the High Castle, you know, it was just the 1 episode, but they shot 18 days, which is like almost as much as a feature film.
Yeah, one of the nice things about working in film is if like you don't like the situation, the people, or the job, whatever,
Yeah.
like you know, like you're just counting the days. You're
Yeah,
like,
you can
it's
either
21
say
days.
just no, you
yeah.
can just say no, or you can just say, oh, I just have 3 more weeks I have to put up with these
Yeah.
people.
All right, you guys, we're gonna like open it up to. We're gonna do a Q&A. Does you guys have like some questions?
Can I spit out some data about
Yeah,
Z
yeah,
Nation?
do that.
So people who are working on the Run a Show, right, for Z Nation made anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000, right? So it's a union contract for the run of show. So from the time that you start to the time that you finish, $30,000 to $40,000, and this is a small show in scope and scale. The average wage for family wage jobs in Spokane, and I'm not gonna remember the who cited this, but or what study it was. It's $36,000. So imagine if we can get 2 of those in Spokane, where the cost of living is less, and you can make $80,000, $60,000 to $80,000. That's a nice, it's a nice thing. So,
And that money really does end up it stays in the community.
and by the way, like 3 lead actors on a cable television series that airs every Friday night. Like, that's amazing. Over 100 extras every episode. Episodic is where it's at. So.
Yeah, and if I can chat a little bit about the incentive, you know, even if you're kind of new to the film industry and haven't worked on an incentive film production or have no expectations of ever working on one, it still benefits you because pretty much every film incentive production, it's something that comes to Washington from out of state. You know, they're bringing money from outside of the state and giving people jobs here. And the more productions we have like that, you know, the more jobs are in state. So if someone else is busy taking the job on the incentive project, that leaves more commercials or other productions open for everyone else here. So it's just, it's good for the community.
Thank
And also,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And it's not just the film jobs. It's, you know, the restaurants, the hotels, you know, all the places that the
Home
incentive,
Depot,
yeah,
seems
Home
to like-
Depot, just all the different businesses that they spend money on. It's good for Washington as a whole.
Totally taking you to Olympia. Like,
Yeah.
totally going to Olympia with me.
Well, and I mean, you can probably speak more to like how it's not a giveaway. The Washington State the taxpayers aren't just giving money to Hollywood. It's an incentive that they get money back as kind of like a dangle a carrot to them to bring them here.
This is the biggest misconception in Olympia right now, and there is this perception that what we do at FilmWorks and as a community is to give money to Hollywood, right? It's insane how pervasive this idea is. And so you sit with legislators and you explain nobody gets a dime until after they've invested in the business, in the jobs, in the whatever. They don't get anything back until they do that and then get through Julie Damon. I don't know if anyone knows Julie Damon at my office.
I do.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
But she's nice though.
No, she's lovely. No, she's lovely. But, she doesn't let anything get by. And I think that's the biggest difference as we all go down to Olympia and lobby for a bill. We're like the model tax incentive, right? Like, everyone gets this money for incentive and they don't have any metrics or data or like, did you create the jobs or did the money come? And we do that without a doubt. Not only that, but you go on and you work in video games and theater and music and all of those things that uphold a much larger creative economy, and we're going to talk a lot about that during the campaign. Like, what we learned from our annual jobs and vendor survey is it's not only about film. It's about this community upholding Amazon and Microsoft and, EA Sport or EA.
Games,
Thank
yeah.
you. But it's about that, right? We uphold something so much bigger, and without that, people leave. So.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of the films that come through that don't use the incentive program, they hire people as contractors. And of course, they're not paying the taxes, and there's no insurance, and a lot of other issues with that. But in order to get the incentive program, everybody has to be like a real employee, and all that, the taxes paid, and all that stuff. Is that right?
Well, and you know what? As that's industry standard. Like, if you go anywhere outside of, that's industry standard, right? You have to pay people on payroll because you tell us where to be and when to be there. It's industry standard. You can't go to Louisiana or New York or LA and not have that be the case.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's do some questions. You guys have comments or anything? Anyone? There we go, Rick.
I'm just wondering about the day in March that we're supposed to be gathering. Is it going to be the 17th or?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
March 17th is Film Day in Olympia, where it will be an advocacy day for the film community and the film industry at large. What will happen is there will be, which happens to be St. Patrick's Day.
Day.
Okay.
So there'll be some kind of green beer at the end of the day, I'm sure. But there are grand aspirations for the day. So right now we are at Washington Homeworks calling and making appointments with every single legislator in every single district. What we need is people to show up and go talk to them, because if you're not from their district, they won't talk to us. So March 17th, the time is 12:30 to 4 p.m. There's going to be a ton of information coming out about it, but it's bigger and better than the 2011 effort, I would say. So the day becomes, you come, you learn about how to talk to legislators, we empower you with information to go do that. There will also be an opportunity that is being formed right now where people who work in this industry are going to be able to do things like, our grand vision. So if we can bring the grand vision to reality. So, we're intending to build a set down there where legislators come out and visit, and we give them a tour of the set. So that means all hands on deck, with no budget, by the way. So
And there's an event this Friday, is that right, you're going to be on?
I'm not going.
You're not going to that? Is that
No, I'm
something we
totally
can maybe
kidding.
talk about, that
Yeah.
the next
Um,
meeting for that you're aware of?
So this is a critical moment. I thought a lot about, I actually made notes about this discussion because I have so much respect for what you guys are doing in general, but very specific to, what we're trying to do right now. You know, I'm not talking about the bill specifically because the bill that I had this morning is different than the bill I have tonight, and probably the bill that I have later tonight, right? I have James Keblis, Lance Rosen, Bob Riggs, Dave Jacobson from the Teamsters, Abby Dillon, Greg Smith. You know, I have an amazing group of people working incredibly hard on your behalf, right? I have Washington Film Pack, who I met this morning at 10:30. I have an amazing group of people. We do not have a bill right now. We have a draft of a bill. Our intention on Friday night in Seattle at 5:30 at the SIF Film Center in the second story.
305 Harrison.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But at SIF Film Center on the Seattle Center campus, in the classroom, our intention is to debut and talk about what that bill looks like. So again, you know, we have a bunch of super smart, amazing people working on this. The bill I had this morning is not the bill I have tonight, and not likely the bill I have later. But I have never been so inspired, you know, so many, again, probably my third or fourth time in Olympia. I've never had the coalition that I have now working on our behalf. You know, our goal is to figure out how we can be more competitive, and all of our time, energy, and effort is going into that. And Friday night, we're hoping, you know, and I say hope because today we're talking about whether or not we'd have a bill to talk about, right? I know what we will be able to talk about is a campaign called Keep Film and Walk, which the Entertainment Trades Coalition, not funded by us, has put together a communication strategist to put together a campaign to, you know, for this effort. And so we will talk about that for sure. If you're invested in that conversation, that is the place to be. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I will be there.
Would you recommend everyone here in this room tonight to be at that, Amy?
I recommend that anyone who, yes, for sure. I mean, it is not about the people who have gotten us this far, it's about the people in this room. I can't stress that enough. You know, I cannot stress enough that it is not about me. It is not about the president of IATSE. It is about the people in this room reaching out. It's really not about me. I can spit data. They don't care about that. So, and we'll see what happens. So, thank you for that question.
All right, maybe like one more question. Anybody have a quick one or not? All right, so just to kind of wrap up, so the best way to be updated, to be on the ball when you need help with things is it Twitter? Is it your newsletter?
It's sign up for a newsletter on our website, top right of WashingtonFilmers.org. That's how we're gonna reach out to you first.
All right, cool. And for you guys, what would be a piece of advice some young up-and-coming filmmaker here in the room that is ready to kind of take that step and work on some bigger productions? What would you give them?
Well, I would say it's really a matter of, you know, just being awesome at your job, no matter what project you're working on, whether you're getting paid or not. Give it 100%, and you know, that way everyone knows that you're really you're the guy to hire. And you know, networking, meeting other people outside of your bubble, going to, you know, the mayor's office happy hour that they have each month for filmmakers. What's that?
It's our happy hour too.
Yes. Yeah. So the just networking events like this, and meeting people, so that when, you know, that next production comes up, they know you. They know to call you. I mean, they'll probably, on bigger productions, they're going to go with the people they know first, and then they're going to fill the holes with people that they don't know. And so if you're the next person down on the list, then, you know, that's your opportunity. Because I got to say, a lot of the work I've gotten, it's, a lot of what I was saying, and then a little bit of luck that I was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, in this industry, it's you could have an altercation with the craft services person over something stupid, and then 2 months later be applying for a gig and realize that they're the producer, and you have no
Yeah.
chance. So yeah, it's really work hard and work well with everyone.
Yes, that's like a big, being good at your job is important, but being a pleasure to work with is almost more important
Yeah.
because you'd rather work with someone you like than even maybe someone like the most skilled person in town. I know that's true.
And I know this is simple, but it bears repeating. Don't be late. Seriously. Like, in this industry, being on time is late.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not there 10 minutes in advance, great. Don't show up, honestly. Because you're not going to get hired again.
Because there's someone else who wants your job.
There's 9 people that want your job, and they will take it without a moment of hesitation.
Or if you are running late, at least call and let them know.
Yeah.
Communicate that you're going to be late. Don't
Yeah.
bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
This is all about communication in this business.
All right, so to kind of wrap things up, I just want to kind of let you guys know what we're working on. We, of course, have a film festival and a transmedia festival May 1st through the 9th. That's coming up very quickly. In April, we have a fundraiser called the Red Carpet Party. It's probably going to be April 18th. And it's a really fun time to come out and network. At that point, you'll already kind of know which films are going to be in the festival, so it's kind of a celebration. We have a pub crawl coming up a couple weeks before that. Before we know which films are in the festival, and it's kind of a chance to come out and lobby and meet some of the programmers, pitch your film, buy some people drinks, and so that's good. And Stiff Educate, do you guys all know about Stiff Educate? Pretty much
Awesome.
every Saturday in our classroom, which is our office, we have a community-based workshop program. Anybody from the community can pitch us a workshop, and we sign them up, and we split the revenue with the community. So yes, keep pitching us those ideas. Oh, we actually have one of our instructors for our next class, Scott Capistani. Do you have a second to just
I'd
give
love
us
to.
a little, like a 20-second pitch about the class that's coming? Because this is a really good class.
Okay, I'll stand up over here. How's that?
Just make yourself comfortable,
Okay,
whatever.
great. My name is Scott Capistani. I'm a film producer here in town, and I want to encourage those of you that are really eager to take advantage of these incredible incentives that the Washington Filmworks has. My workshop the 21st and the 28th will be going over, the title is Merging Commerce with Creativity. And what I'm going to help you do as a filmmaker is how you can procure resources in your local community, leads to funding, business resources, help connect the dots, develop a professional business plan, so when you sit in front of her committee and pitch your project, you're on your way. So if you have any type of project right now in any phases of development, whether you don't have money, you have a story or anything, I really encourage you guys to come to that. It's $50, is that right?
Yeah, it's a two-part class.
Two-part class.
Lunch is included.
And I'm bringing fresh salmon that I caught this last fall myself that I'm cooking. I'm a big fly fisherman, so there's some awesome salmon for that. All right, I know you'll be there for that, right? No. But anyways, I want to encourage you guys to come to that. Again, Amy's office are there to help. She wants to approve your project and help you guys along. So I'm going to really focus on that so we can get that in front of them so we can really build this community collectively, guys.
And this class is for a lot more than just filmmakers. It's
Right.
anything you're doing in the creative arts.
Right.
And it's really about bringing that project to your community and getting the funding, like just from people in restaurants and shops and
Just
stuff you go
developing
to every
business
day.
relationships with people, not just filmmakers, but artists, and really understanding the mechanics of that and the economics and how that kind of falls into your creativity. If you're a photographer, an artist, an educator, that kind of thing. But for filmmakers, again, that's my background and my repertoire on how to put that all together so you can get your projects further down the line with funding and incentive money and all these other great things that they have. So that's the 21st from 10:30 till 4, and the 28th from 10:30 to 4. It's $50 for 2 days, guys. It's a steal. You're going to learn a ton. So,
Yeah. All right. Thanks. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Marco. All right.
Thanks,
Yeah. So we're wrapped. Yeah.